Well, hello, MGTOW. Welcome back. Welcome back to my channel. And as always, I will never ask you for a penny in return. It's not my aim to charge for advice. It gives me great pleasure to have you listen to my video. And this particular one is only an audio file because I'm nowhere special right now, and I can better concentrate on what I have to say by just leaving the screen blank. If you do enjoy watching the video, and I mean if you do enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. You don't have to like it before you watch it. Anyways, I wanna talk a little bit about divorce court, right? Because guys in the MGTOW community, other content providers have they mention divorce court in passing, right? In regards to other videos that they're producing, other content that they're putting out there or whatnot. But for the young guys out there, or for the guys that have never married before, right, and that have never had to go through divorce court, I want to just describe. This is a very simple video, but hopefully somewhat informative. I want to just describe the experience, right, of what it's like going through divorce, or going through a divorce court, right? Spending a day in court, in divorce court, family court. Ironically named family court. So, a day in divorce court starts way before the actual day when you have to attend the local courthouse, right? Of course, you have already decided that the marriage is hell, and you want to run away from that woman as fast as you can. Maybe you're already living in some other place, right? Maybe in your buddy's house, while she's at your your place of residence, the place which you have worked so hard for many years, and she has managed to keep for herself. And you realize that they give you a court date, right? First you have to go there first. You have to go. No one goes through divorce court or to divorce court just once. It's all a process. Once you're tangled up in the web, once you're tangled up in the system, they got you for a while. And you have to keep looking at her face for a while, even though things are sour, to say the least. So first you go and you file the motion to to get divorced. It can work for you or against you, right? Depending on on your take on that. Maybe she's the one that filed, as in most cases, right? But if you're the one that files, you can you file. It's very simple. You go to the courthouse and you say I want to file for divorce, and they'll ask you the reason why, and you can say irretrievable breakdown of marriage, or you can say whatever, she had bad breath, or didn't make me a sandwich, whatever you want to put down on the application. You'll put down 99.9% of the time the divorce will be granted, will be approved, or rather, for not granted but approved for to go into review, right? To go into court, and so that a judge can actually look at it. Things can get more complicated if you have more money, right? If you have businesses and assets that she came on to when you married her, right? And if there are children involved, and if she doesn't want to give you the divorce for whatever reason, or vice versa, if you don't want to divorce her and she wants to divorce you, it can all be really complicated. Lawyers can get involved. But if if you have little money or whatnot, it can be simpler. So the less you have in common with her, the simpler. So right, they give you a court date. Then you have to let your employer know that you need that day off. This is somewhat of a double whammy here, because you're not only spending the day in court, right? And spending your time there, and lunch money or whatever, you're also not making money that day at work if you're not, if you don't own income generating assets, right? If you work for a living, you're not gonna make money that day unless you take, a sick day or whatever, right? But then you're using your sick days. If you're self-employed, it'll cost you much more. So, but the day comes, right? And that first hearing, they call it a hearing because they hear you out, right? They hear what you have to say. That first hearing, it usually takes 2 or 3 months before they give you that court date. So say you file, for divorce January 1st, right? You won't go back to court until maybe March or something. You go, they hear what you have to say, then they'll give you, say that everything goes smoothly, right? 3 months have passed, and she wants a divorce, and you want a divorce. Then they'll just be like, okay, you have 90 days, and your divorce will be finalized unless one of you guys decides that you don't want it to be that way, right? But things are rarely that simple. Anyways, I want to go back to describing the day in court, right? What it's like being, the experience of being inside the courthouse. Courthouses are intimidating buildings. They're designed that way, so that people have a certain sense of awe and respect for the law. Otherwise, otherwise it would be chaotic, right? Architects know that, the way in which a building is designed alters the way in which people behave in it. And so courthouses are designed to be intimidating buildings. You usually have to walk up some steps, and the columns are huge, everything is oversized, so that you feel small inside the place. And this is done intentionally. They want you to feel small so that you obey, right? So you walk into this place, where you're already feeling as if you're a midget, right? And inside the courthouse, there are people with job descriptions that you've never heard of, right? And of course, there's a judge. There's going to be a judge involved, some lawyers. But the law itself is a foreign language, right? And if you sit in a courtroom and you've never sat in a courtroom before, you can begin to feel rather awkward. If you attempt to listen to what they're saying, and knowing that it affects you, that these people's decisions are going to have profound effect in your life, but you're not able to discern what it is that they're saying, and this is awkward even for a guy like me that had to learn a language from scratch. So the law is they have a language of their own, you see. So there you are in this intimidating place. The people are speaking this strange language. You're at odds with the person that was supposed to love you, right, forever and ever, right? And in divorce court, usually when you get married, right, when people get married, there are all kinds of friends and family or whatnot, right, present when the wedding ceremony takes place. Even if it's a simple wedding, there's usually, one or two close relatives standing by, as witnesses or whatnot, that are there, and they support you, the coming together of both both these souls, right, for the betterment of humanity, via the nuclear family. But when you're in court divorcing, it's usually just you and her and the lawyers. And very often the mother-in-law, right? And this is especially true if that mother-in-law had some, some influence in the relationship, right? You are now in a position that you're just not fighting your ex-wife, you're going against your mother-in-law as well. And you best believe that the people in that courtroom, right, have a vested interest in the system remaining what it is. And it's their job. And as special as you may feel, right, as special as you may think that your situation is, the people in there could care less because they see so many cases. They're literally swamped. So you're nothing. You're really a number, just a number to them. And best of luck to you, right? If so, there you are. Most of the time alone. Um, Having already perhaps moved. So you're trying to balance your life out, right? Maybe you're gonna uh, barter over some visitation rights for your kids if you have kids. Um, she's gonna want to try and milk as much money out of you as possible, via child support, maybe alimony. Um, Courthouses, as I've already said, they're kind of intimidating buildings. The temperature never seems to be right, never seems to be comfortable. The chairs are also not welcoming. Um, there are many people there. Everybody looks sad or angry. You can tell the atmosphere of failure is all over the place inside the building. Um, Now, of course, yeah, you have to go through security to get in too, right? That's another thing. Going through security, they pat you down, um, just like they do in every other federal building, right? They take your shoes off, sir. Take your belt off. You got to go through the whole 9 yards. That experience of similar to boarding an airplane nowadays, right? You have to go through that. Um, Lunch is usually out of the way. You're gonna spend the day there. Spend the day in court. When you spend the day in court, you get hungry. Um, and they usually don't have food there, right? So they don't have a cafeteria like they would have in a hospital or something like that, right? So you have to leave the courthouse to go get lunch, right? Um, but by the time you leave the courthouse, the judge has already left 2 or 3 times, right? Because they take breaks. They take breaks every 2 hours or so. And you're wondering, why they're taking a break. Sometimes they take breaks to go look at cases. Sometimes, that need attention. Sometimes they take breaks that they actually need to take for their own sanity. Um, and again, the chairs, you're there waiting. Sometimes they ask you to stand up and wait in the hallway. Um, and at other times you can just stay in the bench where you're at. The actual wooden bench is usually a wooden bench inside the courtroom, right? Again, not too much of a comfortable place. The lighting is very bright. I think they do that for security purposes, but that's it's white light, usually not yellow. Very uncomfortable. Um, and you're no star there. You're not a star. It's a sad reality inside the court. But then you go for lunch. You come back. Of course you lunch on the in a city that you're not used to being, or whatever, that or in a setting in which you're not used to being, right? It, you know Lunch in a restaurant is usually not as pleasant as you cooking at home or taking lunch to work. Um, or in my case, even cooking in the truck. I can cook in the truck, so it's a meal that's made with care, right? But on when you're in a courtroom, you just want to get it done and over with, right? And you want to eat well, because if you don't, and you're facing, you know, you know, you're about to make some important decisions regarding your life, and if you're not feeling well, if you're not eating well, then that can work against you. So you want to eat as good as you can. Yeah, the courthouse is very impersonal. That's the way to describe it. It's a very impersonal experience. And of course, the people that work in those places, and the lawyers and the judge, they're humans. I mean, they went into the law, right, to try and make the world a better place, you know. But they're no engineers. They really are not, you know, um, builders, right? They come in at a time when people are at their worst, and they're trying to make it better. And in that process, um, they 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 become um, somewhat mechanized, somewhat automated. The the arbiters of justice become somewhat detached from all the fighting. I guess that's their way of dealing with, what's taking place in front of their eyes. People fighting in front of them all day long, and they've been trained to handle cases in a fashion which, just it's just that way. It's just impersonal and detached. That's what court. That's what If I had to say, if I had to put it all in one word, or one sentence, it'll be that courthouses are very impersonal and detached places. And there, you feel as though your rights will be stripped away, right? Your right to privacy when they strip search you, you know, the your freedoms in many ways, right? And this is especially true if your ex-wife has filed criminal charges of some sort, or you filed charges against her, right? And there's some criminal, um, uh, how should I say it? There's some criminal issues to be dealt with, right? Because there was domestic violence in the place, or at home, or and that's just how it is, right? Um, if that's the case, you would have it in your mind that you lost your right to bear arms, right? Because now she has a restraining order on you, right? Usually that's how it works. The woman puts a restraining order on the man, as opposed to the opposite, right? Because she supposedly feels threatened by him, her abuser, right? Even though it was all um, to the contrary, right? But needless to say, they'll force you to trade in your weapons, right? Because you have a pending, or what do they call it, a not a valid, they have a name for it, but a, a restraining order that is live, right? That is valid. So if that's the case, then again you have to turn in your weapons. So you lost your Second Amendment right there. So you can lose your Second Amendment through divorce very easily, very easily. So if you love your guns, um, that's something to consider. If you want, if someone is pressuring you to get married, right? That the possibility of you losing your Second Amendment right for a long time um, can come to fruit. So by the time all that is said and done, they'll probably give you another court date. If there's some issues pending or whatnot, regarding decisions that need to be made with in regards to the children, or this or that and the other, if you have kids. Um, But by the time you get out of the courthouse, it'll be 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, you went in there 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30. When you first saw the surly security guards, right? And by the time it's all over, it'll be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, you're hungry and you're exhausted and you're confused, right? Or you may not be as confused as you are hopeless, right? And then you have to walk out of there. You have to walk out of there to your new life, a life, hopefully of being happily divorced, right? But most of the time, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in favor of the man. It doesn't. And you sit, when you're sitting in court watching other cases, watching and listening to, how other people live their lives and, the decisions they had to make, then, it's kind of, in a sense, it's kind of twisted because you look, and you're sitting there and you look and you're like, well, what what made this guy get with that girl, right? She and the ex-wife has all frizzy hair or whatnot, and it's or there are people that have obviously been married for way longer than you have, right? And you kind of feel grateful that that wasn't you, and they have much more complex problems to solve sometimes, right? Because if you marry and you divorce at a young age, then things may be simpler. But once kids are grown, I've seen adults in court. They battle over money for college, right? And she has a lawyer, he has a lawyer. It can all be very complicated, very complicated. So at least in that sense, it's kind of interesting if you're able to sort of figure out what's going on with other people. That can be interesting, but it's all very fast paced also. It's all very fast paced, and again, it's all in the language of the law, so it's not really that much fun. There are many other things that are much more fun than that you can spend your time doing. So that's a day in court. That's usually what it's like. And the only worst thing about having to go to court, worst thing than having to go to court is having to do it all over again, 2 or 3 times, 4 times, maybe 6 times, or more, before everything is finally said and done. Anyways, MGTOW, I thank you for listening to this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it informative. And again, if you enjoyed listening to it, please do give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Thank you for your time. And yes, thank you all to my new subscribers as well, for being here with me. Until next time.